Hi, I'm Gary. Welcome to Healthy Vegan Living. And today what we're going to do is stem soup. Now, let me give you an example. These are some of the produce that I've gotten from my garden. Most people, what they do is just eat this leaf, and sometimes they throw away the stem. The stem is perfectly good. It's delicious. I use most of the stems and I make my own vegetable stock out of it. But today I'm going to show you that if you just cut the leaf, you can use this in a different type of meal, and you can make your own stem soup. It's perfectly fine to be able to use this. Think of all the fiber that you can ingest. So not only are we using chard leaves, but we're also using kale leaves. That's another thing that's growing wild in my garden. And so what I'm going to be doing is stripping off the leaves and just using these stems, and that's another thing I'm going to be showing. I'm also going to be using regular normal celery, which I purchased at Sam's Club to give it that nice flavorful look, and I'm going to be adding some potatoes to it. And the reason behind this is part of the starch solution. The starch solution is the new diet that I'm doing now. I have lost total now 23 pounds. I'm getting slimmer, I'm feeling better, I'm sleeping better. All of these are good things to have. The starch solution was developed by John A. McDougall, and he's been doing this for over 40 years. He has many books on this, including recipes, what to eat, what not to eat. So if you're really interested in this channel, please subscribe and join us. And also, you can ring that little bell on the very top, and that'll also help me, and you'll be able to stay up to date with my videos. For a little while, this channel is going to be dedicated to the starch solution. I want you to experience my journey of me losing weight, and you can follow me and see how I made it work. These recipes I have almost every single day, and I try to put the portion on my plate, and I will show you how to do that. Thanks a lot for listening, and let's get started.
Welcome to Healthy Vegan Living, a whole food, plant-based lifestyle.
So the first thing I do is I take all the leaves and I separate them. Kale, and it's kind of easy, they're kind of like wrinkled, so I know right away what they are. Another thing I do is sometimes, this was an eggplant, Japanese eggplant, and one of the critters decided to take a chomp off the top and a little bit off the bottom. So what we'll be doing is washing this and cutting these parts and adding it. What I do is whatever I have in my garden, I add to it. Like these are red peppers, and it looks like that one of the critters decided he wanted a little bit sweet pepper in his diet. But I always include what I have available in my food, that way it's all fresh. So here, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put all the leaves together, and then all the stems, and some of them you just got to put them together. And I even take the leaves that are damaged or dying, because those stems are perfectly fine. And so, alright, so we're going to see in a little bit, and I'll show you how I start doing the stem soup. Okay, so the next thing you do, once you have this all broken down, I do want to show you this. I have a 6-quart Instapot, and all of this will be cooked in here. The cooking time will be listed both in the comments section and the beginning of this video. I always cook these for 3 minutes, and I'll explain this as I'm showing it to you. Alright, so what I do is I take the stems and I remove the leaves. Now I am going to put these leaves in here, but I'm going to show you how I do that. So I stick them all together and I just cut them up in this, like maybe 1/4 inch size as I can get away with it. So you can see the stems, and sometimes you get these really big ones, and I just cut them in half or whatever. We take all of that, we stick it into the spinner, which what we'll do is before we put them in the Instapot, we will wash all of this. Now none of this, I don't use pesticides, I use nature, flowers, different ways, but I've noticed that the bugs don't really eat too much of the chard. I mean, it's not like I don't get a perfect plant But this is an example of a pretty good leaf. So then I just pick it up as I go. And so that's what we're going to be doing next, and I'm going to show you the next step in a few minutes. The next step is to, once you cut your chard stem, is to take the kale stems and cut those in 1/4-inch pieces. Now that doesn't mean that we're not going to put the leaves in, but we're just going to do it at a different section of the soup. So here goes. So what I do is I line them up like so. And what I've done is I've basically stripped the leaves off of them. Just makes it easier if I do it this way than if I cut them in a bundle. And then I just slice them in. Then I take the bundle and I put it in my salad spinner. Okay, so we're going to get this done and we're going to go to the next step. Now, after you've cut all the stems, the kale stems and the chard stems, and if you still have some leaves, cut that also into your basket. And the advantage of that is, of course, these very hard leaves are going to really basically turn into something like spinach, and it will make your soup even more robust. And then we're going to add a few little peppers and the eggplant that the creature outside didn't eat all of, just as to add in a little extra flavor. And then we're going to use the celery. So I'm just going to show you bits and pieces of how I cut the leaves, and then we'll get to the next step. Okay, so what I do on these leaves is I put one on top of another and I roll them up like a burrito. And then I cut them up in slivers. And what it does is it makes like a long string of leaves. And that's what we're going to do first. And then the same thing occurs with this. It's a little harder with the kale, but it's basically the same thing. You put the kale on top, you try to roll it like this, and you cut it up in little pieces. And I take up the rest of this and I stick it in the spinner. When the spinner gets full, then I stop and I put the rest away, and I put the rest of it in the refrigerator for another meal. Alright, so we'll get this done and we'll go to the next step. Okay, so after the leaves are all cut up, you can see it's the very top, we're going to wash this next. You still have your other little pieces from the garden, like this is a bell pepper and this is a radish leaf. I ate the radish, it was delicious. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you. I don't throw these away just because a rodent did get a chance to get a couple bites. Okay, so I just cut what I can. There's nothing wrong with this eggplant, it's just that's all I got out of it. And here it's the same thing, nothing I can do about this, but I still have a little bit to use. So then I take these little pieces and I just cut them in. That gives you that example. This is a beet radish top. Radish tops can be eaten. You only can eat the small parts of the radish top. So what I'm doing is I'm going to dice it like here, same way I did the chard leaves, and then I'll pick them up and drop them in. The pepper, I'm going to slice it down the center, and all these seeds, I'm going to get rid of the seeds, and I'm also going to dice this. And this is just a mild green pepper. These little red mild peppers, I'm just going to take the tops off and I'm going to dice them too. And this will add color to the soup, especially now that it's starting to get a little cooler. So it gives you an idea of what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to get this done, and then after that we'll start washing the salad. After you've got it all cut up, you've washed the salad. This has been washed twice. So we're going to put it aside. I'm going to show you how I do this. Take your Instapot, and the very, very first thing you put in the Instapot is going to be onions, because this is all the starch solution, low fat or no fat. So we're not going to put any oil on the bottom. The next thing you're going to put in is your salad, especially the stems which are at the bottom, like this. See, now we have a little too much, so we're just going to take some of the leaves out. I'll just make another batch later, okay? What we really want is the stems. And you can see the stems are on the bottom. Okay, after that, we add with the extras that we had in our garden. This is 4 stalks of celery. And over here, this is the green pepper from my garden, the red pepper, and the eggplant. Put that on the top. Next, you're going to put in your water. You're going to use 4 cups of water in a measuring cup. Normally, you would use 2 cups. But I want some broth out of this to be in part of the soup. Okay, then from here, you're going to put in your herbs in. Put in a little pepper. Put in a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. It's okay if it's a little too much. Put in some pink Himalayan sea salt. With that done, then you put the lid on top. You see how the lid is set up? If you didn't want it to seal, you would put it on either of these sides. On this 6-quart model, the sealing is right here in the center. Okay? Now we're going to hook up the power and we're going to turn on the timer. Okay, so this was the salad, the bits and pieces of kale, and some of the stems, and the chard that I wouldn't fit inside the Instapot. So then what I did is I washed it and bagged it, and this is going to go in the fridge, and in the next meal this will all be ready. Now because I want a more of an Italian feel to it, I'm putting in some unsliced tomatoes. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the lid on top. Well, actually, we probably should mix it a little bit. We're just going to mix it a little bit. It gets down there, the broth. Like that. Now you don't want to go all the way down because that's where your onion is and that's what's preventing any of your food from getting burnt. And you see, I have it very tall, very high up in the pot. You definitely need to leave at least 1/4 of the pot empty. And I didn't do that. So what it'll do is it'll take longer for the pot to seal. All right, now we're going to go into the timing instructions. All right, so now we're going to put the lid on top. You make sure that the top is on. Then we're going to press manual, and I want 3 minutes. And that's it. And then this will come to pressure in a few minutes, and it will say on. And that means it's following my instructions. Now, I'll come and show it to you after it's finished, so we'll see in a little bit. Alright, so now what has been happening is I'm turning off the power so it doesn't continue to cook. And so it cooked for 15 more minutes more than I normally would allow it. But this gives it a time to be able to vent. And there's still a lot of venting. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something called fast venting. Instead of letting it vent on, ow, it's hot. Instead of letting it vent normally, we're just going to release the pressure. Okay, once the lock is empty, has dropped, unscrew your cap, let the liquids fall in. And what I didn't show you from previous is I snuck in some potatoes on the front, on the top. So I snuck in these potatoes. So next what we're going to do is we're going to separate the potatoes, which is the starch, and we're going to took everything else into this bowl over here. And this is just basically 3 Yukon Gold potatoes, which I got started to cook. They should be fairly ready because they've been cooking for over 20 minutes. Check them out. Yeah, they're ready. And then when we set up our plate, I'm going to show you how we're doing it. Now if you take a look at that diagram that I put in the very front of this video, and I'll be putting it on from now on so that you can see how this works, where we use 50% of our starch on one side and then vegetables on the other side. Okay, so that's that. That's going to cool down. Now this over here is going to take time. I can show you. Okay, so here I'm just basically going to take out everything from the inner pot of the Instapot, and I'm going to let it cool. You can't put these in plastic food grade bags. They will melt the plastic and you don't want that in your food in the first place. And I use plastic bag because it just turns out to be easier for me. But by the time this goes in a plastic bag, it is completely ready. It's not even hot. Okay, so this is going to take some time to cool down, and I'm just going to lay in this pot here and come back to it, and it'll be all ready for, let's see, for us. Now I also take the liquid out of the pot, so I'd also get that a little cool down. And when I package these, I package them with the broth that was made by the soup. Now sometimes what I do is I take these vegetables and I put it on my plate and without the broth, where it basically is nice cooked vegetables. And this is the secret of the stem soup. Okay, so we're going to finish up and then we'll show you what the next step is. Alright, so once everything is cooled down, like right now the potatoes are cool, this is the broth is cooled down, and this is the actual vegetables that we cooked, where the chard stems and the kale stems are at, and some of the leaves. And you can see, you can barely see the leaves. All that work we did, they just basically vanish. Then you take a nice helpful piece and you put it on your plate. Kind of spread it out a little bit. And this basically is the starch solution. You put your starch on one side, which is your potato, and I'm going to put ketchup over the top of it, and you eat your vegetables on the other side. And you try to do this, and that way you visually can identify what you're looking for. So I'm just going to use this spoon because it just happens to be nearby. But I'm going to show you. I'm going to grab one of the potatoes. And what I did is, right before I turned on, or I put on the top of the Instapot, I realized I had forgotten the potatoes. So I stuck these right on top. And it did take about maybe 2 or 3 more minutes before the Instapot pressurized. And the potatoes are just delicious, just the way they are. And then this is the kale. And what this is basically chard stems, kale stems, and a little bit of the topping that I had. And they still have some texture, which is what I like, because I don't really like really mushy vegetables. I try to cook with some texture so that, because I'm going to be freezing this and then I'm going to be thawing it out and sticking it into the microwave so I can make another meal. So this is like batch cooking, and it's a good way to be able to be healthy. If you don't want to make your own meals like I've done, what you can always do is follow the Starch Solution Diet Cookbook. In the back of the book, there are many different types of recipes that you can follow. Some of them I'll be showing you soon. This is my own recipe, but it does include starch and it does include vegetables, and that's what I wanted to show you. Now this is the plate that we're going to have later. I'm going to show you real quick how I do this. I take a plastic bag, and this is Ziploc freezer quart bag, food grade bag. I'm just going to And then I take this ladle and I put like that much into it. Maybe a little more. And then once I do that, it's all about like that much. Now the next part of it is going to be adding the broth. It's a little easier if you have a larger ladle than this. So then I take and I put it in this way. Sometimes I use a cup. Now let me show you why. I like to have my freezer bags flat. So then I squish everything flat. It just works better in my refrigerator if everything is flat. I bring it to the very edge and I seal it. And I try to always put a date down. Oh well, the pen's not here right now, but I'll be showing you that. So then I put on the date and I write down stem soup, and I pretty much know what's in it. So with the broth, with the addition of the diced tomatoes, the broth is sort of like orange. Here it is, you can see it right here. And it's gonna give a really nice addition. So what I can do is I can use this as a soup, or I can use it as regular vegetables, and I can incorporate other potatoes that I always have on hand. So that's basically the idea of why I make soups, batch cooking. Well, I sure do appreciate you guys watching me in my thin U body, and I'm hoping soon I can get all that weight off and I can show you how I did it. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you soon in our next video. Bye-bye now.
Subscribe to us and give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Thank you for watching.